Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Danielle Cole. I'm the CEO and founder of Black Women in Clinical Research, Black Men in Clinical Research, and Minorities in Clinical Research. Tonight, we have Acrp Starling, who's going to be our speaker for Cognacs and Conversation. So this is just an informal conversation. Acrp is just going to give information about himself and his journey and any helpful advice that anyone is interested in seeing how they can navigate this industry. Acrp, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. First, before I do a more formal introduction, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our host, Danielle Coe. And so Danielle and I, we've had the pleasure to actually work together. And I met you maybe over a year ago and saw you when you had a vision for building out this community. And so certainly I'm excited here to just share, informally, as you requested, about my journey to clinical research, which is maybe like others is not, orthodox, but looking forward to having a very, spirited and interactive conversation. So I encourage the Cognacs and Conversation community to feel free to ask questions, to engage, and this is for you, and certainly looking forward to sharing my story. By way of introduction, my name is Acrp Starling. I am Kim's husband. I'm Riley and Rivers' dad. And when I'm not being Kim's husband and when I'm not being Riley and Rivers' dad, I'm the CEO and founder of Revelis Clinical Services. And Revelis is a purposeful technology-enabled clinical research company that enables patients with rare and complex diseases to engage in clinical trials in the comfort of their home. We do so by leveraging integrated technology combined with decentralized clinical trial services. So again, patients that are interested and willing to participate can do so in the comfort of their home. Our organization has a unique social mission, and that is to really increase the awareness and expand access to clinical trials for communities that have been traditionally underrepresented and people of color. So again, very excited to again engage in this discussion with the Cognacs and Conversation community.
So Acrp, tell us how you got started in clinical research. Let's hear from the beginning.
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of laying the foundation. So I am a pharmacist by training, and so to give context on that, I actually am a native Texan, born in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Ultimately ended up at Purdue University, where I was a student athlete. I was actually a varsity football player, so had very strong interest in you're really truly maximizing my athletic scholarship. So I chose to basically pursue pharmacy. So I did my pre-pharm at Purdue, and then in my second year, I actually applied for the College of Pharmacy at Purdue, and ultimately was able to enter into the College of Pharmacy and earn my degree in pharmacy. So really early in my careers, Danielle, I really kind of cut my teeth like most pharmacists coming out of school with experiences in retail pharmacy operations. Really quickly, I was started out as a pharmacy manager of a new concept for Walmart, which is called Neighborhood Market Stores, running a pharmacy for them. And then I ultimately ended up getting promoted to actually open multiple stores, and led me into kind of a district management role. And so from those retail pharmacy experience, I had an opportunity that springboarded me into another aspect of pharmacy, which again, I like so much about clinical research. Pharmacy is one of those kind of professions where there's so many different facets. And certainly, like Tiffany said, there's so many different facets of clinical research, and we certainly will touch on that. And so I got to enter into a role at a specialty pharmacy where I was one of the foundational leaders to start a new specialty pharmacy for patients with chronic kidney disease. And really for that experience, it was a great opportunity. It was an entrepreneur venture, meaning it was a new company that was started by a larger Fortune 500 company, but it felt like a startup. And ultimately from that experience, I ended up realizing that I didn't have all the tools. I didn't have all of the skill sets that I needed to fulfill my professional trajectory. And more specifically, I was well trained at Purdue. When I walked away from Purdue, they taught me how to be a great clinician. Where they missed the mark is that I didn't have a lot of business experience. And so at DaVita, I actually had the opportunity to go pursue an executive MBA. So I actually applied to one school, only applied to one school, and that was Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. I said, hey, if I'm going to go pursue an executive MBA, I'm actually going to go to the best executive MBA program in the world. And I applied, and I got accepted. What's really interesting from that, Danielle, it was roughly about 8.5 years after I had graduated. And for an executive MBA, they typically like you to have about 10 years of experience. So I knew I was a little light on my experience, but nevertheless, they took a chance on me. And so I actually, got the opportunity to do an executive MBA and work at the same time and full-time job. So for those, obviously in the conversations today that are doing school and working full-time, I totally understand. And so that opportunity was phenomenal for me. And then, after graduating with my MBA, I was actually recruited to join a private equity-backed company, and that was called Quorum. It was actually a specialty infusion. It was a specialty infusion pharmacies where I was recruited to be the vice president over 8 home infusion specialty pharmacies across 6 states. In that role, it's really when I got my first kind of experience with clinical research. We were doing clinical research in the home. We didn't have a fancy title such as decentralized clinical trial services. We were actually providing nursing and in-home services for patients that are on infused investigational drugs. And so I was in that role for about 3.5 years, and then was recruited to join McKesson to run an oncology-focused specialty pharmacy. It was a legacy business of U.S. Oncology. For me, I was in that role for about 5 years when we had an opportunity to go acquire another oncology-focused specialty pharmacy, a much larger organization, which was based out of Raleigh, Durham, or at that time, it was actually based out of Cary, North Carolina, called Biologics. And Biologics had a small business that was doing clinical research. They were largely doing investigational-led studies. And so we combined the two businesses together, and I had oversight of that. So in my role with McKesson, I was the vice president running both a oncology specialty pharmacy as well as a separate business, the clinical research service businesses. And so again, really in that kind of experience in that 5 years is really where I started to see some of the challenges around clinical research with recruiting patients, retaining patients in studies. Even in a community-based oncology model, we struggle with trying to recruit patients and keep them in the studies. And then that's when essentially God gave me the vision for Revelis. And Revelis essentially is a convergence of both a personal experience as well as a professional experience that really opened my eyes to to try to create a company that would address the most pervasive challenge in the clinical development, which is finding patients and keeping them in the trials. And so in 2019, it was actually May of 2019, I tendered my resignation with McKesson, and I decided to bet on myself, guys. I said, hey, I'm going to go create a company. I felt in my heart of heart that I could run my own company. I was running a pretty significant company for McKesson in terms of a business unit. And I just felt very strongly about the fact that all of those experiences over those last kind of 15, 16 years have prepared me to launch my own company. And so I resigned, and in July of 19, is when, affectionately, Revelis became my full-time responsibilities.
Oh, wow. That is definitely amazing. I don't know why I didn't realize that 2019. Okay. So when we spoke the first time, it was only probably a year after you had pretty much started. Because I think we first spoke in 2020, I think.
Yeah, we spoke
Okay.
in 2020. So really, Revelis wasn't really fully launched. We were in stealth mode. All of, kind of, let's say the quarters 3 and 4 of 19, because I was really trying to figure out, how we were going to, launch the organization. There were a few other DCT providers that were in, in the space. And I think we would probably characterize it there where it was more capacity than demand for DCT services. And so our business actually launched, interesting enough, so you guys can appreciate this for the Cognac and Conversations community. I fully launched February of 2020. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. So here I am, small business, founder-led, just launched my business, ready to take on the world. And then we get hit with a global pandemic.
Yeah, I know that had to be very difficult starting your own business and, like you said, with COVID. So I know you mentioned decentralized clinical trials. Can you tell everyone more about decentralized clinical trials?
Yeah, happy to. And I think, obviously for this audience, I think many of your community either are working for organizations that are, engaging in clinical trials, but in its simplest fashion, decentralized clinical trials are clinical trials that incorporate integrated technologies such as wearables, diagnostics, telemedicine, electronic patient reported outcomes, e-consent, combined with services provided by local home health providers to provide a more patient-centered approach. And so our industry, as a result of COVID, has completely transformed our adoption to decentralized clinical trial approaches. So the FDA strongly advised the industry back in early, I want to say late 2019, there was guidance released, but strongly encouraged the industry to align on nomenclature. Before that, you heard a lot of things. You heard things like virtual, you heard siteless, you heard remote, you heard, direct to patient. And so we've since kind of moved away from all of those, kind of labels that don't really accurately describe the approaches. Really, took heed to the guidance from the FDA, which is, really aligning around decentralized clinical trial approaches.
So I guess we can do this. How many people, if you can just list if you're involved in the clinical research industry or whatever your current title is, can you just list that in the comments so we can just have an idea of, what positions you guys hold? I'll start. I'm a remote site monitor. So, for me, okay, we have research project manager, remote site monitor, okay, clinical research coordinator, regulatory coordinator, country study manager, fiance. My fiance, he always supports and comes to my meetings. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to see him in the audience and supporting me. QA analyst, senior CRA, regulatory coordinator for IRB, director, Office of Sponsored Programs, healthcare systems, associate project manager. So in a ECRA, not really, haven't heard that title before.
Yeah, well, I will just say from one kind of thing, when we look at some of the roles and responsibilities, I think everybody, I would comfortably say everybody will either be impacted or some way, their roles and responsibilities will be, affected by decentralized clinical trials. And they may not be, in a negative fashion. Really, what we found is decentralized clinical trial approaches are really just really, changing the landscape for, sites and CROs and, service providers to the industry. And so, it's really nice to see such diversity across the roles and responsibilities in the community.
Yeah, you might have to convince my fiance, since he has his MBA also. So maybe you guys can have a conversation. He can figure out how he can be involved in clinical research also. So
Awesome.
we do have one person that mentioned that they're a grad student hoping to join the clinical research industry. What advice would you give to someone that is interested in clinical research, ready to embark on their journey, but just not really sure what's their next steps and how to navigate this industry?
Yeah, no, so this is one question, quite frankly, we get a lot. And the industry is in a place where we certainly have more demand than we have supply. And so we need more people like the Alexis and those that are interested in participating and joining our industry. And so for me, what I would first say is, really try to look for, entry level opportunities where you can get your foot in the door. And for someone who's a graduate student, someone who is actually transferring from an adjacent industry, whether it's healthcare, unfortunately, the reality is our industry isn't kind to people who don't come with requisite and domain experience. It's an unfortunate series of events. And what we are trying to do is to create, mechanisms where people who may have transferable skills can come in and gain kind of meaningful employment and careers in research. And so, unfortunately, a lot of companies are looking at this, and they're evolving their hiring practices and their talent acquisition practices to reflect that, we have some unique dynamics where there's certainly more demand than there is supply. So first and foremost, look at opportunities to get your foot in the door. That means, at the site level, at a CRO level. I know many folks have aspirations. Kind of the gold standard. A lot of folks want to be the CRA role, the clinical research associate, which is a great role, and that may be right for some others, but there are many meaningful roles that are available leading up to that. That you can, so be strategic about it. So look for entry level opportunities. And apply for those roles. But also, I think it's important to tap into communities like Black women in clinical research, Black men in clinical research, ACRP, SOCRA, and some of our other industry organizations, to really come, equip yourself, build your acumen, build your skills, so that when you get ready for an interview, you really look good, and can be convincible, and someone would be willing to take a bet on you as a candidate that they may not have a lot of experience.
Okay, that sounds very good, Arcaz. Rashida Hall, one of our admins and director of career development, wrote that lots of companies have new grad programs. Google a list of CROs and pharmaceutical companies and go to their website. I know that PPD has a program for university students if you're in undergrad and if you're in a graduate program. So that's always an option. Let's see, someone else said that they have a graduate degree unrelated to clinical research. However, I have skills that would transition into clinical research. I have applied for many of these roles, but still nothing. I will continue, though. I have also taken courses as well. So I know a lot of times when it comes to your, your resume and making sure that those skills are, visible in your resume. And I know when I talk to different people, they would say that if the job is listing, like if the job description has these certain skills that's listed, and if if you have those same skills, to change your resume, make sure those, like a lot of those words, because when it's going through the applicant tracking system, they're picking up these words. So you want to make sure that they're picking up all of the words that's in your resume, and especially if you have experience in that. Let's see what else. So I know, Arquez, you talked about ACRP. So can you tell us about your involvement with ACRP?
Yeah, so I've been a member for a little bit over 2.5 years now. It's when I came into this industry, as I shared with it, my entry to clinical research was a little bit unorthodox, right? So again, I have a pharmacy background. Spent a lot of time on the commercialized services side, and when I decided I was going to launch a clinical research company, for me, I thought it was really important to make sure that, I was engaged with one of our, leading industry groups. And so did a little research and aligned with ACRP. And so naturally, I was a member. I had essentially expressed interest at the local level, at the Dallas chapter. It may be hit or miss. So I'm sure others may have experience with this, whether at the chapter level, whether they're, really, kind of emerging chapter activity. But beyond that, for me, I actually saw great value with the organization on a national level. And then as a result of that, guys, we were really at the heart of 2020 during the kind of civil and unrest, and after the death of George Floyd, I was really looking for the industry, ACRP, to have a voice, and I was quite frankly a little disappointed that we weren't saying anything. And I had met the executive director at a conference, and so I had befriended him. So I reached out and said, "Hey, we got a lot of people that look like me in our industry, and you guys need to say something." And at that time, his, direct feedback was like, "Well, we're not really sure what to say." And I said, "Well, have you guys considered like some type of advisory council that can help you, think about how to like craft messages and really, position yourself with your community and your membership?" And he said, "No, we had not." And he said, "Well, let me talk to the board." To kind of fast forward the story, he went and pitched it to the board and came back and said, "Hey, Arquez, it's a great idea. The board loves it. Why don't you run it?" And one of the first people that I asked to be on that diversity advisory council with ACRP was yours truly, Danielle. She was one of the first people that I said, "Hey, I'm building this small, kind of multifunctional, multidisciplinary team of folks that are going to help us really ensure that our industry group is really staying, very centered around the things that matter to diverse communities."
So your recent role, you have a new role with ACRP, right? Are you trying to talk about that?
Well, it's not official yet. So it's not official. So what Danielle is essentially meant is, so as a result of my engagement with the Diversity Advisory Council, one of the board members asked me to join the board. So I was nominated to the board, and then all of the members, most of, hopefully all of you that are on the call, maybe saw me on the ballot that ended on October 31st. Hopefully you voted for me. Hopefully, I won your hearts and minds, and you voted for me. And we'll be learning in the upcoming months if I will be a part of the ACRP Board of Trustees.
Well, that's amazing. So we were just going to say, when you are on the Board of Trustees, as far as how diverse is the Board of Trustees right now?
Well, it wasn't very diverse. It was diverse by gender, but beyond that, there wasn't much diversity. But I'm pleased to share that It looks like we may be adding 2 or 3 more members from that are ethnically and racially diverse, as well as gender diversity. And so again, we think that obviously, we don't think, we know that obviously diverse groups are more innovative, they're more productive than homogeneous groups. And so that's what we look forward to bringing to the table. And just know you guys will have someone who is, again, when the announcement is made, someone who will be a very strong advocate of, obviously, how do we continue to, increase the engagement across the workforce for the clinical development, but also to how do we continue to look to create ways and strategies to bring clinical trials to communities that have been traditionally underrepresented.
Thank you. So what do you want people to know about your company? Or is there any information that you would want to share about your company?
We're taking over. No, and all seriously, no. So my organization, again, we are a small company with a big vision. And that vision is to be the preeminent provider and collaborator of clinical research solutions that enable patients with rare and complex diseases to engage in clinical trials in their home. We are fueled by our mission. Our mission, our singular purpose for existence, is this notion of bringing hope closer to home for more patients. We feel that that we can be an organization that's purpose-led. We think we can be an organization that is people-focused, and we think we can be an organization that is a force for good. And so if those things that resonate with this community, we're hiring, we're looking for talent, and we want people that share our spirit of mission and vision and want to come to a place where, again, their work gives them more purpose and meaning. And so look out for us. We're excited. And again, we're small, but our vision's big.
So what positions are you specifically looking for? And do you have to live in Texas, or can this be a remote position?
Yeah, so if you would have asked me that question 6 months ago, I would have had a different answer. So I think obviously COVID has really illuminated the fact that some of these roles can be done and people can work, very effectively. Their performance can be matched at a high level remotely. There are some roles, because of the nature of our business, because we are licensed as a pharmacy. There's a lot of things from a clinical operation that requires that you be in Texas. And so roles like clinical research coordinators, project managers, the clinical research coordinators are roles that we want to be local, but project management roles, regulatory support roles are roles that we're open, that could be either local or remote. But yeah, that's really where we're focused.
Okay, so Andrika said, let me scroll up. Of course, it's acting funny.
Yes, let's take over.
Let the takeover commence.
Andrika, by the way, I follow you. You're great. I follow you on LinkedIn. So yes, let's take over.
Yes. So let's see. Also, she wanted to know, is your company creating any training programs now or in the future to help people transition into clinical research and DCT?
That's a really good question. And we haven't created any training programs to transition. Most of our kind of content and resources have been largely on customer facing. How do we educate sponsors? How do we educate sites on how to engage with Revelis? I want to be in one point of clarity. There are a lot of DCT companies that are, kind of positioning themselves around like software. There's some that are focusing on services. Our organization actually combines the two. And more specifically, we are focused on hybrid decentralized clinical trials. And what that means to this community is that we're not trying to disintermediate the sites. We actually think the sites actually will continue to play a very meaningful role in the ecosystem for clinical research. Their roles will just be different. And so how we're trying to position ourselves is to be the collaborator of choice, both for sponsors as sites. And so anything that we've really been, kind of, in our early onset has been focused around how do we educate sponsors on the benefits and the advantages of DCT approaches. We haven't done anything around training folks to come in. Now we have internal training, like, in terms of like how we train our team and our staff on how to manage the affairs and orchestrate DCT approaches, but nothing, beyond that. But it's a really good question.
Okay, yeah, she was asking about internal mentorship programs because we have a lot of members that live in Texas. I would say Texas is probably our second largest chapter. And so there's a lot of people, there is a lot of people that are asking, well, can I shadow, can I see kind of like the day-to-day activities of, different companies? And I think people really just want to get more of an idea because you hear about clinical research, but a lot of times you don't always know what that entails. And, different companies are doing different things. So I know that we have a lot of people that are interested in shadowing and college students that are interested in doing this also. So definitely
we're totally open to that. We do have actually a formal internship program that actually is scheduled for the summer. So we do kind of a summer and a spring event, and so folks that are local to Dallas Fort Worth, reach out. I'm happy to put my information in the chat, and so we're looking for talent. We know that really how we're going to differentiate ourselves starts with the people. And that's why we're focused on people. And, we don't have to be an organization that's got 50,000 people. We are an organization that can have 5 and people who are led by their purpose and really engaged. We think we can actually make a difference.
So does your company have ways where, I don't know if you can share this, but I'm just curious because, in order to help more diverse people participate in clinical trials, do you guys have a method or do you have something that you're following in order to do that? Because I know with Acrp, they had a document that they released where they talked about 70 to 80% of people that participate in clinical trials are Caucasian. And even though, African Americans make up 13% of the clinical trial, the 13% of the population, only about 5% are actually participating in clinical trials. So what methods do you have, or what methods would you like to see in the future so that you can gain more people who are diverse to participate in clinical trials?
Yeah, really, primarily the method for us is really around access. How do we bridge the gap between access to clinical trials? We know, I'm sure if we asked or polled this community, how many of you guys live within 15 minutes from, kind of an academic research organization? I think I would feel comfortable. So most people say, no, they don't live next to these kind of monolithic research organizations. And so people, people of color, people that are, again, traditionally been underrepresented, the traditional model has required them to make the investment to take off work, to come in during, kind of the scheduled hours of 8 and 5. And so where Revelis is actually, kind of bridging that gap is bringing the clinical trial activity to those people that's centered around their schedule. So if you can't be seen between the hours of 8 and 5, then our nurses can come after that. Our nurses can come on the weekend. And another, kind of method, which is somewhat indirect, which is we really try to leverage people that are from the community. Just by the general nature of our model, we will hire, train, and then deploy local providers, whether that's a nurse or a phlebotomist in that community, to go into that home and to provide those services under, our guidance. They're under the oversight of the investigator that's listed on the 1572. But what gets those investigators really comfortable and give them assurance is the training and the robust process around quality that we give to those nurses and those providers to go into the home to provide those services. So really, just definitively, our approach is really bringing the clinical trials to the community. And so going where people have not gone before, and really trying to build rapport and foster trust through being able to bring and educate them on the benefits and advantages of clinical trial participation.
Okay. So Andrika said pretty much creating a way for rural communities to get access.
Hey, Andrika, I'm a country boy from East Texas. I was born in East Texas. We're 3 hours east of Dallas, and nobody would do a clinical trial. The closest thing would be Tyler, Longview, or you would have to pass Tyler, Longview to come into Dallas. And so everything that I think about my aunts, I think about my grandmother, I think about my family that are in those rural communities who, have conditions, who could benefit, and how research and medical advancements could benefit from having, a broader catchment area and geographical footprint, so that, again, we have proper and adequate representation in these trials.
So Rashida said, is it difficult to convince sites to use your services? Do they feel like you're taking away from them?
Yeah, so great question, Rashida. So if you would ask me before COVID, I would have said yes, because there was a lot of confusion about services. Many of the sites generally fear what they don't understand. And so when you use words like siteless, when you hear words like remoteless to the site and to the investigator, the first reaction is that you're trying to disintermediate the sites and you're trying to take the sites away. And so how we position ourselves is that we're not here to disintermediate the sites. We know that the relationship with the patient is with the investigator and the actual doctor and their care teams. And so how we position ourselves is we are a collaborator. And so we found that to be a path is more easily tolerated when we're engaged in sites. So now we actually didn't see sites initially. We didn't see sites as a customer. We were kind of focused more on sponsors. But now a lot of our business is directly coming from sites. They're calling us and they're saying, "Hey, we have a study. It actually has decentralized clinical trial approaches. There's nursing visits or in-home visits. The sponsor has a provider, or the sponsor doesn't have a provider, or they leave it up to us. We would like to partner with Velis." And we say, "Hey, we're here to help you."
So this is probably just thinking about this. Do you have numbers as far as percentage? Have you seen, since you started, have you seen, or have you been taking with the numbers and seeing how the percentage of diverse people that are involved with you? Have you looked at the numbers? I guess that's what I'm trying to say, if that makes any sense.
You are thinking just like me, and this is actually one of the things that we want to get. We want to get to a place where we have kind of more demonstrative data around the benefits. Right now, it is conceptual, in terms of, people say, well, you hear other companies talk about DCT equals diversity. I think some of that is true, but I don't think it necessarily correlates. You still have to go in and you have to address the issues around trust. You still have to go in and address some of the socioeconomic issues. You still have to go in and educate. And so that's what we're looking to do. So we don't have any hardcore numbers yet, but that's something that we're working to, so we can demonstratively say with a high confidence interval that our solutions are, impacting, and providing a mechanism for more diverse communities to participate. The other thing that I do want to touch on is not only we're addressing in, with some of our decentralized clinical trials, is we're starting to work with sites that are research agnostic or research naive and helping build capacity. Also, we know that there are a lot of investigators that are, people of color, but they don't participate in research. Most of them say, hey, I don't have time for that. I don't want to take away from my clinical practice. But again, if you think about where the best patients are, they're going to see these folks who are often not clinicians. And today, it almost has to be a serendipitous event. Your doctor just happens to be an investigator, and they have to be knowledgeable of the trial, and they have to be in a place where And so working on those folks that could be sub investigators is something that we're looking at and piloting.
Okay. Thank you so much, Arcaz. We're going to give the audience a chance to ask questions. If you would like to ask a question to Arcaz, if you want to turn your video on, or please feel free to ask a question. I'll say now is your time. Arcaz has been in the industry for, a lot of times you don't have the opportunity to ask a question to someone who has been in the industry for a while. So even if you're thinking about leveling up on, or just trying to figure out what your next position might be. So.
Well, I'll just kind of address it proactively. I think that, in terms of like those that are in the industry, I would strongly recommend that to think about lateral as a new vertical. And what I mean by that is look for opportunities to get adjacent skills. I think gone are the days or, kind of functional silos, like project managers, salespeople. I think to make yourself more attractive to employers, gain as many experiences as you possibly can. That means that even in your current capacity, if you have bandwidth, volunteer to learn about marketing, volunteer about patient recruitment, volunteer to learn about technology. Ask to be on some of these projects and just say, hey, listen, I'm just here to help. And I think what you get and what that allows you is people will see you taking, the initiative to, say, hey, I'm someone who's committed to self-renewal. I'm committed to someone who has a high learning orientation. And so I think that's what you look for. And then another piece is, guys, like you can't wait on people to promote you. You gotta function in a role. If you want to be, a leader or a supervisor or a project manager or a leader of people, don't wait till you get the title. Just from my experience, when I promoted people, it's because people were already functioning in a capacity that I can see them moving into the job. So you have to function in the role that you want to be before you actually get the job internally. It's a little bit different when you're an external hire, but internally, if you want someone, is to use those opportunities. And then last but not least, guys, work on your branding. Like when I think about, kind of counseling and advising like students, it's like your brand is so important. Just like, Nike and Apple and Gucci and Louis Vuitton. Like when you hear these names, there's associations, there's feelings that people associate with those. Well, you are a brand. So when someone says, Danielle, what do you want them to associate? Hey, she's smart. She's a critical thinker. She's hardworking. She's collaborative. She's a team player. Those are really important aspects. When you're thinking about positioning yourself for advancement in these organizations. And then one of my pet peeves, just when you interview, guys, please ask questions. I can't tell you how many times I've come to an interview and I say, hey, you have any questions for me? And they're like, no question. I think what that reflects is that you haven't taken enough time to really try to understand like what your role is in the assessment process. As much as I'm interviewing you, you are interviewing me. So have questions, because you need to be interviewing your employer. You need to be interviewing your boss, because people don't work for companies. Every day people quit Google, Goldman Sachs, all of the companies that are on the best places to work. Every day people leave. And the reason why people leave is not the company, it's the people that they work for. So don't just look at the role. Talk to your boss, ask the question. Hey, what's your experience with mentoring? What's your experience with, helping people get to the next level? That's a question every one of you should ask your boss. What's your experience with helping promote people? How many people have you promoted in the past? If they're like, well, I don't promote people, I would tell you, go look for another role.
Like next. Okay. Yeah. Andrika, she does interview prep for Black women in clinical research. So she definitely says this all the time to our members. And she also said that she had the opportunity to help a completely different department and learn something new. So yeah, she is saying preach. And she's like, I'm over here shouting, because we say this all the time, that you have to ask questions, because a lot of times if you don't ask questions, they don't think that you're interested in this job. They're going to go with the person that has asked the questions, that has really did their, I would say, their research on the company. And, so that is very important to ask those questions. I know for me, I try and think of questions. I'm like, even if they asked all the questions, I'm like, let me think of something, something to say, a question to ask. So
absolutely. I think it's so important, guys. Again, you have a role. It's not asymmetrical. It's not the employer just interviewing you. You are interviewing the company. You, in this economy, in the economy right now, you have a choice. The ultimate freedom is choice. You can choose whether you're going to go work for them. And so, you should be assessing them, and you should have a mechanism to help inform your decision. So please ask questions. Please get to, talk to the people who are going to be managing you. That is so important. People want to work for inspiring leaders. Ask them about your people process. How many times do you meet with your direct reports? I meet with my folks weekly, and, we start our meetings off. We don't always go into business. One of my leaders is on the call. We like, hey, how's your family? What'd you do this weekend? We build rapport, because as much as I care about them, as an employee, I want them to bring their whole self to the workforce. And so you can't compartmentalize that stuff. So look for an organization that wants you to bring all of you. And that means all of you, your dysfunction and your advantages and your talents. We want all of that.
Yes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess all of it. I agree. Andrika said, Pastor Arcaz, you may have another calling.
Hey, listen, I'll pass around a collection plate after this. I like the money that fold, not the money that jangle here, okay?
So, Francine said it's a two-way street.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go for it.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just had a question about how the decentralized trials, how are they audited and regulated?
Yes, it's a great question. So the same regulatory requirements extend to DCT. And so the mechanisms in which they are audited are somewhat similar. Now, CRAs and monitors are actually not going to the homes as a place, but they're actually looking at the providers. And a lot of that is looking at, ensuring that the providers can demonstratively show that they are actually following GCP and all of the regulatory, requirements. And so nothing is different. There is nothing that is laxed. The same requirements that extend to the site extend to me. when we bring the trial to the home. Quite frankly, I think the actual burden may increase and the level of complexity may increase when you have a decentralized clinical trial as opposed to things being centralized.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? You see, Andrika said, I'm giving a seed offering, Arquez.
I love it. I love it. Yes, yes, I love it. Listen, kind of, I guess, with a few minutes left, here's what I would, offer up in terms of kind of sage wisdom to this community. For me, as someone who was, a leader, and I think about like, what advice would I give my 23-year-old self? Like, I came out of school, I was focused on, professional trajectory. I was like, I'm going to be whatever you put whatever title you want it to be. And for that first pretty 10 years of my career, I was really frustrated, guys. I was so frustrated by just disappointment. I was frustrated by that, I wanted to be CEO and I wasn't ready. And so I spent a lot of time kind of chasing. I spent a lot of time frustrated by how things did not work in my favor. But I didn't realize through that opportunity that really God was kind of, setting me up for something greater. And for me, it was a revelation. And no point, my company is called Revelis, which is a Latin word for discovery. It's where we get revelation. But for me, the turning point for me is when I started focusing on purpose. And I said, listen, I have been equipped with these talents. I've been equipped with these skills, and I have the set of values that make me who I am. And so I'm going to use those to actually pursue my kind of my professional trajectory. And so my life got so much enriched when I said, hey, I'm actually going to not pursue promotion, but I'm going to focus on purpose. And it's less about money. It's less about titles. It's more about what can I do to impact others? What can I do to really provide a more, greater sense of purpose and meaning for my life and for my family and my legacy? And work got fun for me. And so when I pursue purpose, it wasn't actually hard for me to say, listen, I'm gonna walk away from a lot of money, big company, and I'm gonna go at this hard. And I just wish everybody actually could feel it. It's hard for me to characterize, but when you find purpose in your work, I don't even know how to describe it. It's such a great feeling.
Indescribable. When you tap into your purpose, when you're passionate about what you do, you can do it all times. It doesn't matter. It's like you can't turn off the light. Like the light bulb is constantly going off, and I feel like that is a lot of times for me. Like my brain won't like when it's time to go to sleep, my brain won't stop moving because I'm thinking of what's the next best thing for Black women in clinical research. What can we do to help more people? So, tapping into your purpose and definitely realizing what you're truly passionate about is definitely helpful. So whether it's a different therapeutic area or, reaching out to people that hold that title, a lot of times we kind of get afraid to reach out to people and to connect with people. But if you see someone that, like especially on LinkedIn, and you're like, okay, this person, they're doing this, they're doing that, just have a casual conversation and reach out to them and, see if you can just chat with them, get on a call and just tell them what you're trying to do and see maybe they know somebody that can help you with your journey. So Andrika says she has a question. Okay, Andrika.
Apologies, not to prolong this, but I'm fired up over here. So in New York City, in terms of the, DCT or whatever, they have these trucks that are essentially mobile vaccine, places. That's where I actually went and got my vaccine. Literally on the corner in a chartered bus. You sat there, you got your vaccine, you had to wait for a little bit just to make sure you didn't have any AEs. So I'm wondering, and it may not be as simple as it seems, like just having a chartered bus. Will that sort of be what DCT looks like, or is that only after like market or approval type of things? Like, could
Yeah.
DCT look like a mobile bus in your neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So again, with the kind of the takeaway for the community is DCT is a broad description of different approaches. And so the best way to characterize it is looking at ways in which to bring clinical trials to patients. And so leveraging, these kind of mobile, whether it's, mobile providers or mobile vans or, kind of these, that is a DCT approach. And I think there are other organizations that are doing it. We haven't looked into it yet. Because there's some issues around scale and, how many buses can you employ? But yes, that is a decentralized clinical trial approach.
Well, thank you so much for your question, Andrika.
Thank you.
And real quick, Arquez, because I know you mentioned project management. So the project manager position that you have available, is that remote or?
It depends, but I'm open to explore it. I have a personal preference that I want the person there, but I'm not the hiring manager. So it really depends.
Okay, so for a special person. Okay, I got you. Well, so
all of this community is special. All of your community is special.
Well, I don't know if you have any more final words, Arquez, before we end the call. I don't think anyone has any more questions.
No, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for organizing this event, or thank you for your pursuing your passion. Thank you for creating communities for people to come, both experienced, those who are not experienced in our industry, and provide a mechanism for folks to get equipped and to pursue very meaningful, purposeful careers in clinical research. We need all of you. I hope again that you can find, that feeling, which I can't describe it. It's undescribable when you're able to find, and connect with that greater sense of purpose and meaning. Life gets so enriched for you. It's not about money. It's not about dollars. It's just about impact and significance.
Absolutely. The money will come. So thank you so much, Arquez. Thank you everyone for joining us. Arquez, I know you said you would put your information for LinkedIn in the chat. And I always tell people at the end of the meetings to please include your LinkedIn URL so that we can connect with you outside of this meeting. So, if you saw a person comment or, something kind of sparked your interest, please feel free to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to send people a message. It's okay. Everybody wants to help. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll leave this up for a little bit so people can drop their URL for LinkedIn. But thank you so much, everyone. You have a great night.
Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Yes, it was very, very good. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.